Um, in a moment, I'm going to introduce our speaker and read her credentials. I wanted to take a moment to sort of set the stage on the issue. Um, and the first few paragraphs I'm going to share are from a story printed in the New York Times on October 18th called "The Battle Inside Israel Over Who Must Fight Its Wars." Um, and the writer does a long report on the situation in Israel with conflict over the Haredi community's role in defending the state of Israel. Um, and some of what the reporter writes is looking back in history with the understanding that the few thousand who escaped the Nazis or had maintained a continuous presence in the Holy Land would remain a minority in what was then a secular socialist state. The first leaders of Israel's Haredi community sought an arrangement that would grant them maximal autonomy. Um, Against the backdrop of the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, David Ben-Gurion, Israel's first prime minister, granted an exemption from military service to draft-age Haredi men studying full-time in ultra-Orthodox yeshivas. At the time, there were roughly 400 students who met such criteria. There are now more than 60,000. The article also notes that the Haredi political parties in the last election made up nearly one-third of Benjamin Netanyahu's governing right-wing religious coalition. More recently, the Israel Supreme Court ruled in June of, I think it was 2024, that the government's refusal to draft Haredim was unconstitutional in the absence of any legal framework for that. So more recently, the Defense Ministry began to issue draft orders, and the IDF said that they had sent out about 80,000 draft orders. Barely 3,000 Haredim had responded affirmatively. In a more recent publication on e-Jewish philanthropy, Mark Challendoff, who is the president of Maimonides Fund, wrote, "For those who haven't tracked the issue closely, exemptions for full-time Torah study go back to pre-state arrangements. What was once a narrow accommodation has grown into an untenable imbalance. After October 7, 2023, the question is no longer philosophical, it's existential. A society cannot sustain a defense burden carried out by only part of its population, especially when headlines forecast that by 2050, roughly a quarter of Israelis will be Haredi. Israel's Supreme Court has now ruled the current arrangement illegal, and most Israelis across the spectrum agree. But the governing coalition relies on Haredi parties, and that makes meaningful reform nearly impossible today, setting up the next election to revolve around whether Israelis want a coalition capable of legislating a new social contract." So that's some of what uh, frames our just our consideration for tonight's topic. When the Jewish Community Forum was talking about issues that it wanted to look at in the next year, this rose to the top. And immediately after we put it on the list of topics that we wanted to address, I read a really wonderful article by our speaker, Dar Nadler, about the work of the Israel Sci-Tech Schools. And she has graciously agreed to join us and tell us a bit more about that, as well as some of the other work of Israel Sci-Tech Schools. So let me now introduce the speaker. Dar Nadler is the executive director of Friends of Israel's Sci-Tech Schools. Previously, she was the Jewish National Fund's Israel emissary in New England and the Capital District of New York. While in Israel, she was the CEO of Blue White Future, a prominent Israeli political non-governmental organization established and led by the former head of the Shin Bet. She also served as a senior advisor at the Israeli Ministry of Defense during Prime Minister Ehud Barak's tenure. She was born and raised in Kibbutz Barkai. Its founders included her grandparents who made Aliyah from South Africa in the early 1950s. Her other grandparents are Holocaust survivors who came to build the state of Israel in 1947 and have lived in the city of Ramla ever since. Ms. Nadler served in the IDF, graduated from Tel Aviv University with a master's degree in public policy and conflict resolution. And she's dedicated her career to the state of Israel and its future. And the organization she represents, Israel Sci-Tech Schools, is Israel's largest educational network. It's a leader in science and technology education for decades. Their mission is to provide equal opportunities for all Israeli youth, regardless of gender, religion, or socioeconomic background. Through a comprehensive iSTEAM curriculum that integrates innovation, science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics, students gain the values, skills, knowledge, and expertise needed to lead a resilient, inclusive, and economically strong Israeli society. We're honored to have you with us tonight, Dar, and we look forward to learning more about the projects that Israel Sci-Tech Schools does with the Haredi community as well as with other communities. Thank you.
You're on mute.
Yeah, thank you, Harry, for this wonderful introduction. You actually gave some of the background and the historic context that I'm going to also touch upon and maybe elaborate a little bit. So apologies in advance if there's any repetitions, but it was, of course, very important for me to bring you the context of what we're talking about. So with your permission, I would share my screen now. Harry or Mark, just let me know if you can see the screen well enough or well.
All good.
All good. Amazing. So good evening, everyone. And I really want to thank you for having me. And I truly appreciate, before we even start, I truly appreciate the fact that you made it a priority to educate yourselves about basically the future of Israel and the future of its next generation and future generation. As I'm sure you all know, and wasn't mentioned, but as I'm sure you all know, these days, once again, Israel is facing brutal war, and while we are gathered here safely, millions of Israelis are unsafe. And literally, as we speak, I see on my phone that there are red alerts now in the north of Israel. And so we all know that Israelis are probably the most resilient species in nature, but nonetheless, I want to ask you to join me for a brief moment to mentally send our prayers and good vibes to our beloved homeland. Am Yisrael Chai. And now, before I'll review the work that we do to integrate Haredi Orthodox community, let me please just give you a little bit of a background and context of what is Israel Sci-Tech Schools. So, as Harry mentioned, Israel Sci-Tech Schools is Israel's largest independent educational network. We operate mainly high schools. In American terms, I'd say that this is a charter school network. It is the nation's leader in science and technology education. At the same time, we are focusing immensely on social education and meaningful community engagement. Israel Sci-Tech Schools serves 100,000 students, account for 1 in 10 Israeli high schoolers. That is 10%. We currently operate over 260 educational institutions, including 42 colleges for practical engineering and vocational training, in no less than 54 municipalities across Israel from all kinds, and that is 20% of the total municipalities in Israel. Many of our over 500,000 graduates have gone to hold leadership roles in high tech and academia, in the military, in the sciences, and so on. With over 75 years of experience, we serve students from all sectors of Israeli society: Jews, Arabs, Muslims, Druze, and Christians, secular and religious, from metropolitan and outlying areas, including social peripheries. At the heart of our work is the understanding that education does not exist in a vacuum. It takes place within a community and often serves as the beating heart of the community. We strive to nurture excellence across all age groups and backgrounds. We guide our students to achieve outstanding educational, social, and personal outcomes, to integrate successfully into the global landscape and embrace giving back. We are shaping Israel's future quite literally, investing in its next generation. Now, Friends of Israel Sci-Tech Schools is the US-based 501c3 organization that's dedicated to support the amazing life-transforming work that Israel Sci-Tech Schools are doing in Israel. And now let's talk about what we came here to talk about. Just a few steps back, if you will, again, a little bit of the historic context that's important to better understand the topic that we're talking about. So as most of you know, mandatory military service has been a cornerstone of Israeli society since its founding. However, the status quo of Torato Manuto, which is a very important term to understand, it means his Torah is his profession, has allowed yeshiva students to defer and ultimately avoiding serving the army altogether. And when David Ben-Gurion, as Harry said, when David Ben-Gurion approved this exemption in 1948, it applied to only 400 students. But the numbers are actually higher than what Harry mentioned in terms of how many are actually exempt these days. We are talking these days about 80,000 Haredi who are eligible for service but are not doing so. In 1998, this is actually where Israel's Supreme Court ruled that the exemption is unconstitutional, citing the harm to equality. But following arrangements have been repeatedly invalidated, protests erupted along the years, and as of July 2023, that was even before the massacre, there is no legal framework supporting the exemption. The massacre of October 7th and the very long war since, of course, highlighted the urgent need for combat soldiers, but for soldiers as a whole. It really shifted the debate from a moral issue of equality to an existential one, meaning the country literally needs more soldiers to survive. So massive public pressure and constitutional rulings have essentially intensified this much needed social change, and it made Haredi recruitment a very controversial topic in Israel's public discourse. It really is something that, well, obviously you can see it also in media is covering it here as well, but it's something that's very explosive in the Israeli discourse these days. And unfortunately, while political solutions remain elusive, this is where organizations like Israel Sci-Tech Schools and other non-governmental organizations and academia are really stepping into leading this necessary social change. So how can a school network play a role in addressing this sensitive and urgent national challenge? So what we do is that we implement a model that works, and we do so while respecting tradition. And I feel like this is very much the basic and I would want to say the framework of the framework of what I'm going to talk to you about tonight. So what we did is that we carefully studied, we observed, we genuinely engaged with the community, and we've learned a vital lesson. This is not about coercion, and it's not about compromising on core values. Rather, it is about building bridges that empower the Haredi community to take an active role in Israeli society without compromising on their unique identity. The way we do it is that we offer specialized educational tracks that blend Torah study with high-level vocational training. These programs create real pathways to both employment and IDF service while respecting religious identity and strengthening the sense of belonging of all sides, actually. Haredi inclusion is not only an economic necessity, but also a critical step toward ensuring a fairer distribution of societal burden of military service. And as we said before, it's almost an existential requirement at this point. Now, you're probably hearing a lot and mainly about the shortage in combats. And we're talking about 12,000 soldiers shortage. While this is true, this is not our focus. What we do is essentially freeing up other soldiers eligible to be combats. And I'll clarify this point, it's very important. The IDF cannot do without technicians and combat support soldiers. And when planning personnel, the IDF distributes the recruits across all units. So the need for fighters is increasing because, among other reasons, non-Haredi individuals who are eligible for combating, who could have been assigned as fighters, are now taking on these non-combating roles. So by integrating Haredi into technical, technological, and combat support roles, we effectively free other soldiers to frontline combating, and thereby increasing the number of fighters in the IDF. Now, assuming this is clear, please also keep in mind the following critical fact. We're an educational network. We're not the government. And our national and moral responsibility is to promote solutions that benefit all sides and foster unity in the Israeli society. So now that we established that, let's talk numbers. And I promise it will be the only slide with many numbers in it. So bear with me. So what you're seeing now are the general numbers, again, to give some, not even context as much as perspective. The numbers of Haredi IDF enlistment, you can see it over the years, the way the way it lays out. First two rows, you can see that it's the annual draft class of about 14,000 Haredi men who are turning 18. This is what is known as the annual draft class. Every year, about 14,000, of course, the number is increasing with the years, are turning 18 and hence becoming eligible to enlist to the IDF. Out of which the state set goals of recruiting 4,800 and 5,800 last year and this year's accordingly. Now, in the far right column, actual enlistment, you can see that we are at half the goal at best. Okay, you can see the 1,100 as of today since the beginning of 2026. Also, you can see at the bottom row, historically speaking, 2016 to 2023, between those years, with the exemption still being legal, we were lucky to have 1,200 soldiers per year from the Haredi community. Now, a few things to notice below the table. While the official annual draft class is 14,000, in fact, there are about, like we said before, 80,000 Haredi men in the recruitment ages, which is 18 to 24, who are not enlisted but can be. You're probably asking yourself, how is this even possible? So out of this amazing number of 80,000, the answer is that 66,000, 80% of them, counted until recently as yeshiva students, Torato Umanuto, meaning that legally they previously benefited from the legal exemption of service. However, as I mentioned before, following the expiration of the exemption law of Torato Umanuto in 2023 and the High Court of Justice ruling in June 2024, this status no longer grants a sweeping exemption from the obligation to report for duty, which basically makes these 80,000 Haredi outlaws. So for the first time ever, we're seeing things like the IDF has literally began the process of sending enlistment orders to the entire pool of eligible candidates with the goal of summoning approximately 54,000 additional Haredim by July 2026. Some would say that's imaginary goal. This number represents the younger ones out of the 80,000. Also, another reason why summoning, quote unquote, only 54,000 out of the 80,000 is that the IDF is technically not equipped to absorb 80,000 Haredi soldiers if they are, for instance, reporting for duty tomorrow. The army probably isn't even ready to absorb much less of that number. So now that we understand the bigger picture, let's dive into what we at Israel Sci-Tech Schools do to help filling the gaps and encouraging Haredi enlistment, not coercion, but encouragement. So Israel Sci-Tech Schools offers a variety of programs combining military service with high-quality vocational training. These programs enable Haredi individuals to contribute to national security while acquiring in-demand professional skills that will benefit them in civilian life, which is a privilege that most of us Israelis did not have when we joined the army, naturally. So approximately 700 Haredi enrolled in practical engineering at our colleges and they enrolled in practical engineering and technician tracks, and those are designed to integrate them into military service. Study fields, if you are interested, are including programming, practical mechanical engineering, mechatronics practical engineering, auto tech, software practical engineering, civil engineering, electronics, electrical engineering, industrial engineering and management, and many more. Upon graduation, they will serve a full service. They're enlisting in the IDF prior to starting school and are often attending school in IDF uniforms, which is I want to say that for Israelis, this is groundbreaking. This is unimaginable to see so many Haredis in uniform, in IDF uniform, in classes, studying something that's not Torah, so to speak. Many are testifying, though, after being enthusiastic about that. Truth is that many are testifying that they would normally change back to their traditional outfits before returning home, so they are avoiding harassment in their Haredi community. It's still, again, we're talking, that's a huge progress, but those are still relatively small numbers, and it's still very much unacceptable in the Haredi community to support any sort of IDF enlistment. So far, 20 cohorts of ultra-Orthodox computer programmers have been inducted into military service through us and through our programs. That is 600 Haredi graduates of our network who have already completed the full cycle, from Torah study to college training to full military service. These students serve in various technological IDF units. Some are elite units, relevant to their fields of study. As a result, the IDF benefits from their technical expertise and can free non-Haredi combat to combat roles. And the Haredi student soldiers gain valuable experience that supports their integration into post-service workforce. We'll talk about the integration in workforce in just a bit. And that's what we call a win-win situation, wouldn't you agree? Now let's take a look at the, the, workforce integration. First, again, a little bit of context, national context. This slide shows you a little bit about the overview of what is the current situation in Israel in terms of Haredi employment. So I think probably most of you know that traditionally Haredi men are not working because they study Torah. This is, by the way, a model that takes place only in Israel. Therefore, the Haredi women are working in great percentage. This also must change in order for Israel to have a sustainable economic future. We're seeing the very urgent need of more taxpayers and more participation in economic and market activities, so to speak, in order for Israel to be sustainable economically as well. Haredi community makes up to 14.5% of the entire Israeli population, with 6.5 children birth rate per woman. Women are working in 83%, which is equal to non-Haredi women. As I mentioned, women are very much aligning with the non-Haredi numbers, but unfortunately they earn only 67% of non-Haredi women. And men, however, are working only in 53%, which is below even not only it's below the non-Haredi percentage, of course, it's way below, but it's also below the state's goal of 67%. They are earning even less than the women. Integrating Haredi into the workforce, whether it's with or without army service, important to understand, is a vital thing for sustainability and strength of Israeli society, as I've already said, and it's very important to keep reiterating. Focused vocational training programs provide them with the necessary tools for the swift entry into the job market in high demand fields with significant earning potential. So in collaboration with the Ministry of Labor, employment integration programs serve as a cornerstone for their integration into the Israeli society as a whole, including the IDF. Our programs at Israel Sci-Tech Schools for Haredi men are such as, once again, programming and software and cybersecurity, mechanical practical engineering, and also things like construction site managers, AC and refrigeration technicians, and so much more. These tracks are meant for Haredi in the ages of 18 to 35. And these programs take place in our campuses, including Beit Shemesh, Bnei Brak, Jerusalem, Kiryat Bialik, Netanya, Rehovot. Aside of the Haredi campus in Bnei Brak, which is the only one for now that's exclusively ultra-Orthodox, all other locations for Haredi students take place in integrated colleges, which is also pretty much groundbreaking. In these cases, however, Haredi students study in segregated floor or building with male-only faculty. Partnerships is something that we take very seriously in Israel Sci-Tech Schools, not only on this subject. We believe that in order to make a real national impact and be a national player that we are, across the board, for all sectors of Israeli society, we must collaborate and partner with other agencies. This is why you would find partners in the highest caliber partnering with us, such as those that are mentioned here. And I'll mention just a few of them from the governmental arena. You can see the IDF naturally, the Ministry of Defense, the Ministry of Labor, the Ministry of Economics and Industry, Israeli Aerospace Industries, and the international Israeli companies, like some of them you probably know very well, Intel, El Al, Israel Electric Corporation, Israel Railways, Rafael, Electra, And of course, there are many NGOs and nonprofits involved in this process. These are powerful partners, and their partnership speaks volume on on the validity, the quality, and the importance of these programs. And we, like I said, we take great pride of these partnerships. So to summarize, both IDF and employment integration. Here is a cool graphic I made myself with AI. The bottom line here, in terms of IDF serve, which is the most burning issue, obviously, Israel Sci-Tech Schools is responsible of about 7% of the total recruitment numbers. And at any given time, over 1,000 Haredi students, 1,113 as of today, are enrolled in our colleges, both those on track to join the IDF and those who are not. A remarkable 55% are in the engineering technicians program, while the rest are enrolled in various professional and vocational training fields. That number continues to grow steadily. I repeat, it continues to grow steadily. And we are on track to expand it significantly in the coming years. And I'll talk a little bit more about what we're planning and how we're growing. At the end of the day, what we did is we built trust with the Haredi community. And we did it through a quiet, consistent, and respectful approach over time. And we're talking over a decade now that we are in the business of integrating Haredi into the IDF. Over a decade, way before it became the flavor of the month. So we do believe that this trust building process is reflected in practical accommodation, as I mentioned to you before. And also, this is what partnership looks like, not coercion, not judgment, but collaboration. So what's next? First and foremost, I want to make it very, very clear that the demand is higher than the supply, meaning we see more applications from Haredi than we are able to facilitate. This is great news in itself. It means that there are meaningful undercurrents in the Haredi community. And that the potential is immense. We must seize this momentum and act, especially now. So how do we grow? How do we expand? And how can we make a bigger and even more substantial impact? Here are some tangible examples of our expansion vision. These days, we are taking another historic step by preparing to open a technological Hesder Yeshiva for ultra-Orthodox high schoolers in Netanya, the first of its kind in Israel. Allow me a few words on the concept of Yeshivat Hesder or Hesder Yeshiva, so it's clear. Maybe some of you are familiar with this concept. This is an Israeli institution, an Israeli invention that combines advanced Torah studies with shortened mandatory military service in the IDF. It was invented and tailor-made for the religious Zionist community, the Dati Leumi, and is typically 5 years, during which students spend about 2 years in active combat or non-combat service, and the remaining time in intensive Torah study. The goal of this concept and framework is here too to allow religious men to serve their country without compromising on without compromising their spiritual or educational growth as religious people. This worked for decades and is still working for the religious Zionist community, but not for Haredi, who completely forbid army service, as you know. Now, as society sentiment shifted, we're looking to use this concept and this format and adjust it and apply it to Haredi society. Our Haredi Hesder Yeshiva track will also be a 5-year program and will include 2 years of intensive Torah studies combined with practical engineer training from morning to night to evening, and followed by, and here is the difference, 3 full years of meaningful service in the IDF. That is a full service, not just partial. One caveat here is that we see that enrollment in this specific track remains low compared to the other programs. And the reason is, the primary reason is because the lack of a monthly stipend worth of $500 throughout the 2-year training period. Another thing that we are planning on doing as part of the expansion is we are preparing to launch a new Haredi-only campus, such as the one we have in Bnei Brak, in the religious town of Beit Shemesh. It's worth noting that our Bnei Brak campus recently received a generous donation for a fully equipped computer lab, which remind us that the expansion of this essential process relies very much on donations as well as the country's support. In conclusion, I want to reiterate that Israel Sci-Tech Schools remain committed and devoted to enhance our positive, life-transforming, and actually state-transforming work. We believe that Haredi mostly want to integrate, but are genuinely afraid of losing their ultra-Orthodox identity. So the approach of anyone who wants to truly solve this issue must be based on respect for the Haredi community, which is exactly what guides us. Let me leave you with these final words before I wrap up. As Israeli society grapples with existential questions, the work that we do offers clear message. Solutions are already here. They just need support, goodwill, and scaling. We are in the business of spreading hope and unity and not despair and division. And we know that we also inspire other organizations and institutions to do the same. We see that all the time. At a time when unity is more essential than ever before, especially in Israel, but of course not only, we are proving that it is possible to both serve the country while preserving identity, and we can build a stronger future together. And now, really, before I wrap up and say thank you and open for question, I do want you to bear in mind that our network does so much more. What we were focused on this evening is merely one, I want to say, not tiny and not small and obviously very important, but that's only one aspect of the work we do nationwide. These days, just for, as an example, we are heavily invested in rebuilding the North. I want to say, before, a week ago, it was rebuilding the North post-war. But clearly, it's not post-war yet. But what is essentially true is that we're concentrating in rebuilding the North post the return of the citizens who were evacuated since October 2023 from the good part of the North, among which the biggest high school that was evacuated in the entire state of Israel after October 7th was our high school in Kiryat Shmone, which is bordering with Lebanon. And it's a high school of over 1,000 students. That's only one high school that was evacuated. We had more than just one, and other networks obviously had schools evacuated. But since we are very well spreaded and probably dominating the north of Israel in terms of education, we took the initiative to come up with what we call the municipal model. And through this model, we are leading the rebuilding of the North through quality education in full collaboration and conjunction with the mayors, the municipalities, the local leadership, and we're doing above and beyond just quote unquote education. I'm taking you to the beginning of my talk is that we are seeing education as the heartbeat of the community. It's the it's the generator of any healthy and resilient community. And this is why we understand that our responsibility goes above and beyond education and just what is happening inside the school within school hours. So on that, I'm very happy to come back and talk at another time. But just so you know that this is another very big initiative that we are concentrated in, as well as, like I said and mentioned, that we're leading the country in science and technology. That to say that we are also the only education network in Israel that has our own research and development center. So oftentimes we are testing and coming up with new innovative pedagogy that later on the Ministry of Education of Israel would also adopt after seeing if it's working for us. Again, just a teaser for maybe a future talk. Now, of course, we would love you to join us to our really amazing work that we do. Of course, assuming you were impressed. So, of course, we invite you always to spread the word, to host parlor meetings, whether it's virtual or in person. I'm always happy to come and talk about what we do or some aspects of what we do, like tonight. I think the best thing you can do for yourselves are actually to come to Israel once everything settles down, to come to Israel with us, and we will take you to see this work firsthand. And when you'll see Haredi students, I'm telling you, you'll be blown away and you'll get so inspired and so hopeful that it will be worth the travel to Israel, that's for sure. So please feel very free to be in touch. You can be in touch with me directly. You have my contact information here. You can also scan the QR code here and it will take you directly to where you want to be, need to be. And of course, as always, financial support is something that we always need and is always appreciated. And now you know exactly where you can also designate it to. So with that, I once again want to thank you for having me tonight and really thank you for making it a priority. And I'm happy to answer questions now.
So people can put questions in the chat if you want to type in the chat, and we'll go that way. Or if anybody has any other questions, Harry, you can also host any questions from anyone that has them. I see a hand up.
Oh yeah, I'm seeing one question at the chat, but you
Oh,
feel free to tell me what the questions are.
muted me, so you can see me. So my name is Josh Kaplan. First of all, thank you for this presentation. Really enlightening and it's clearly very, very important. My question for you is this. It seems to me it would be extremely important to have Haredi rabbinic leadership being on board in some way. And my question is, do you have any, rabbis that are leading certain sects or certain groups that you work with? How do you integrate them into the program? Because that seems to me to be, that would be a game changer.
So the short answer is that, as I think, as we all know, Haredis are not doing just about anything without the blessing of their rabbinical leadership. So you can assume that if they're here, there are indeed rabbinical leadership blessing. But your question is spot on something that we actually, and I touched upon it a little bit, something that we also learned in our many years of working with the Haredi community. And this is that things are being done very much below the radar. And things are done quietly and respectfully. And this is where you can get these groundbreaking blessing from the rabbinical leadership. Oftentimes they would not give it publicly, but they would give it, quietly. And it's very important. Sometimes it stands a little bit in contradiction to the noise, the very loud noise that this subject is actually causing in the Israeli discourse. So it makes it very, very, it's cornering the rabbinical leadership, because as long as this debate is happening so publicly, it's very hard for them to give these consents. Now, I'm not even saying if it's legit or not, or whatever we think about it, okay? But again, we don't want to be right, we want to be smart here. And we want to be respectful here. And it doesn't help to say that you want to be respectful, but then, lose your patience along the way of the process, which is often, we come close to, because it's a very difficult goal that we took upon ourselves. But what we see is that, again, quietly, constantly, diligently, things are changing. It's not happening fast enough. We understand. If it did happen fast enough, we would be ready for October 7th, for the October 7th massacre. There wouldn't be any issues, right? But it's not happening as fast, but it's still, as far as we understand, the only way to go.
So I have a couple of questions from the chat.
Sure.
Number one of our listeners said, 1,100 so far this year. If that's the number, even though it looks small, that would be like 550 per month. So then maybe, 6,000 per year. Is that what you're projecting, or what are you really projecting for the year, given that,
No, so
1,100 in just 2 months?
No. So it's a bit confusing. When we say 2026, we talk about 2025, 2026 of this calendar year, okay? And this is why we're saying it's only 1,100 as of now.
So it's a school year, maybe not the calendar.
Yes, exactly. It's not necessarily a school year, it's the Jewish year, and we count it from September. So that's the...
Okay. Another question, what percentage of the students in the program are female, and how many are in the pre-IDF program that are female?
These programs are solely for males. Okay, it's very important to understand. We have tracks for women, for Haredi women. As mentioned, Haredi women do not need our help and our structure to blend in and to integrate into the workforce in Israel. And when it comes to Haredi women army service, that's very much forbidden in the Haredi community. However, we do have one program, and as far as I know, we only have one, and I doubt if anyone else have it in Israel, of Haredi women who are not enlisting the IDF, but are serving the IDF as civilian workers, meaning they're studying cybersecurity, for example, at our colleges, but it's in conjunction with the IDF, and by the way, with the police as well. And then we are training them, and then the IDF and the police will absorb them, not as soldiers, though, as workers, as employers. But this is also pretty much groundbreaking for a Haredi woman to, well, when she goes to work in the morning, she literally enters an army base, which is not nothing. But you won't see any of them in army uniforms or police uniforms for that matter. In addition to that, I want to say that we do have many programs, and also a high school that's entirely Haredi girls, for Haredi girls in Bnei Brak as well. And we see also very advanced change within the Haredi female community as well. But again, it's not necessarily related to IDF integration.
Okay. Any other questions? That's all I have. Okay.
No, I
Well,
see
again,
someone, yeah.
just I think reacting, saying thank you.
I see someone oh, okay. Yeah, sure.
Okay. With that, again, I want to thank you for sharing with us tonight. And again, we appreciate it. It was very eye-opening understanding how the dynamics work and what you guys are doing kind of a little bit under the radar. And so thank you again. And with that, we'll end the chat.
Thank you very much for having me and have a great week. Shavua tov.
Thank you, Shabbat Tov.